Welcome to Woodturning with Dick. I've got 4 Mallee Burls here, varying ones. It's quite dark. Some nice. They're all quite different. That's the lovely thing. Got cracks through this one. Essentially, they're Mallee Burls from Australia. They've got quite different texture. Love this. This one's interesting. And this one, more traditional, I'm used to. What I want to make is a wall hanging piece and then split it into 3, not as a triptych, but as in have one large piece this side, smallish one, a larger one, or vice versa. We'll see as it goes on. It's a work in progress, as most of my work is. Picture a square, almost square, maybe slightly not square, frame. Won't be in a frame. It's going to have resin all through here. You've got to be careful of these, where they're cut off, where they've been attacked here and here. If I have that on the outside, that on the outside, when I square it all up, that'll come off. That'll be dead flat there and across there. Right, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I can foresee. I'm just trying to explain it to you. This one, these ones, I'm going to leave up this way. There's that offcut there. So that's going to come in the corner. This side's not very pretty around here. So have that over in that corner. Essentially, it's going to be like a 4-way river piece. This one is really fat. So in a moment, I'm going to cut with a handsaw, as straight as I can. I'm going to cut that off, that top bit. And then that top bit, I'm going to lay in the middle, which will be under the resin. This will be lovely, beautifully polished with this resin running through it and coming over onto this. And colour-wise, I'm thinking a really light, opaque, is that the right word? Really see-through. Nice light blue, like a, let's have a look. I recently got these mica powders delivered. Cobalt, it's a lovely kind of sea blue, isn't it? This was the one I was thinking. Neon blue. Ooh, that could be quite nice. I mean, there's Midnight Dream, that's not suitable for this one. But look at that lovely dark blue. There's the scuba blue. Oh, it's going to be a toss-up between that one and the neon. Right now I'm thinking it's going to be the scuba blue. What I might do is mix a small amount of resin and just a small amount of powder on each, give them a stir up and just gauge it. Or I might just go straight in with the scuba or the neon. Undecided yet. So first job's first. Not going to cut that down yet. I'm going to turn this. I'm going to put a bowl in here. So I'm certainly not going to build my frame yet because I need to determine how big I need it, because I don't want too big a gaps between things. Let's get that mounted up, that flattened off, and dig a bowl in there. That is the only wood turning, so if you're a wood turning enthusiast, you can turn off when I finish turning the bowl. I found the weighted centre with a spike in the vise, and just ready for mounting. First spin up. Yeah, it's currently nicely weighted. I like it. So I'm just going to flatten the bottom off and put a chuck grip in. Not worried about finishing the bottom because it's going to get all sanded flat with the other pieces in due course anyway. And that will do for my chuck grip. There's a bit missing here, but that's fine. Don't need to worry about that. And that will come off later. Now, I'm not worried about the outside surface at all. I'm not even going to turn it, because that's all getting sanded down when the final thing, the whole surface gets sanded. And trust me, it's going through a machine. I will film it. But all I need to do now is hollow my bowl out. I'm just wondering, that hole is actually big enough. Do I want it slightly bigger? Do I want it slightly smaller? These are the challenging pieces. Because look, I'm going to come across the top here, cut it off like that, about here, and come down here, leaving all of that. But come out much wider. It's not going to leave me much before the edge of the piece. Got a lot of depth left. Got quite a good shape there already. I think if I continue down a bit more, just get a nice kind of near half ball in there, so it really bounces the light with the gilding. Get more of a straight edge on this outside. Yeah. Got a nice half ball there. I'm going to sand that out. I think that is going to be big enough, actually. In the interest of getting it through the table saw and a nice flat edge, I am actually going to trim down this just very roughly. That should now fit on the table saw. Sanded to 400 grit. Sander sealer as promised. Oh, nice. I'm saying nice, but this is going to be covered with gilding. Gorgeous grain. Interesting inclusions in this one. All slightly different, which is awesome. Look at that. There's kind of creamy yellows in this side. But this is the side with the bowl. This was the original idea, with that in the middle. Then I'm just going to pour all my masses of resin down through here, cut up through here, cut up just to halfway there. So you've got three pieces, one big piece there, two smaller pieces. The change that I'm thinking of, to flip these over, all except that one, obviously. So they're now all the kind of right way up, except this one. So therefore you've got that depth where the resin will seep underneath, you know, like cliffs you get up beside a river. Now I freehand cut these on the bandsaw just now, as you saw. So I'm just going to tidy these up now on the table saw. I think I've finally decided. This is the order I'm going to have it in. With that top piece, I sanded down, that's almost flat. And that can go in the middle there, like a silt pile that you get in the riverbeds. Next thing I need to do is build a frame, for which I will need some wood, some MDF, some glue, some screws, and some polythene. That'll do as my backing board. Attached the boards to it, so the boards are slightly higher than the wood pieces. Coated it in some wood glue, put a load in the joints, even though I had really good joints and they were all glued down properly. Just an extra security measure to stop the resin leaking. Plus some rubble sack, which I expanded open, so there's no seal in it whatsoever because it's completely enclosed. That's just stopping resin leaking. So when I take this off, there shouldn't be any resin attached to it. I now need to take that indoors, place the burrs where I want them with a 5mm gap at the very edge, so it allows the resin to run around the backside. And the very centre one, which is quite light, I'm going to glue that to the backboard as well. I've given it a good shake, hence the bubbles. Now this first pour is purely to get a base. Now I've not used this mica powder before. Got a little measure here so I can get a nice even consistency because I'm doing quite a lot more of these pours. Dump that in. I haven't mixed the hardener with it. And the GlassCast is a 3-day cure. I usually leave it a little bit longer than that. That neon blue that I'm using, quite dark in the resin actually. Well, it's a heck of a lot darker than I thought it would be, so I'm going to knock up another one, cut this in half. It's still dark, even though I've thinned it right down. Oh well, I have a nice dark blue instead of the kind of turquoise see-through that I was originally after. But you live and learn. Heck of a lot less powder next time. Who'd have thought that that colour mica powder would be that colour? Oh well. Whoever buys this piece, and if ever they have a black light in their home, they're going to get quite the surprise. Right, let's mix some hardener in. At least that's diluting it a little bit more as well. I need a better stir stick. Absolutely love this bit. Here comes the resin. Pour from a great height, stop the bubbles coming out, but the bubbles always work their way out anyway. Because it's so dark, what I might end up doing is putting clear over the top of this. Off the top of this 2 pints. Actually, let's put some in those cracks. The second lot, I'm going to show over this side. Actually, I'll put a little bit on top here of this. So for the next pour, which is a deepish pour, I've got this much resin left of the 50ml plus GlassCast. So I'm going to pour that lot into the Mallee Burls. But I do want a lighter blue. I've got that nice dark blue at the base. I thought it was going to be a light blue because I wanted the whole thing very see-through. But the mica powder is actually quite dense stuff. You can't see through it that well. Now, I've got the neon blue, which I used last time. I've got the scuba blue, which I suspect when it's in the resin will be a bit lighter. But I've also got some glow blue, which is white powder when it's like this. But with the lights off, it's like this. So I'm going to mix a little bit of the white with the neon to see if that brings that blue a bit lighter. And rather than potentially waste any resin, I've got, where I've done various ratios over the years, I've got a lot more part B than I have A, which is the hardener. Should give me a good gauge of colourings. If I get the right colour, then I can split that between the remaining pots. Let's get our neon blue in there first. I'm going to go for kind of a half-ish spatula. Let's put some of the, well, it's essentially white, similar sort of amount, not exact. Let's see if that gives us a paler blue. Not really is the answer, just gives us a kind of cloudy, murky. I think I'm going to put that to one side and try the scuba blue with the same sort of quantities. So let me clean my utensils. Try a half-ish scoop. Ah, that's nice. Ooh, that's lovely. Given this is an experiment, I'm going to chuck a quantity of the glow blue in there. See what it does. Leave that alone for a minute. Let the phosphors exhaust from the light. See if I'm going to get a slight glow off of that, because that would be lovely to be able to turn that off at night and see that beautiful river pattern. So there's no glow. You can see the powder to the left there. Is there a glow? If there is, it's very slight. It has got the most subtle of glows. So I am going to use this, but I'm going to dull it right down. Split this one between 4. Put some part A in. I've got a lot of mixing to do. A quick look, see if there's any glow whatsoever. There is the smallest amount of glow. Well, it's back. It's back in the workshop because this is looking lovely, but this pour was slightly too deep. 25mm for that GlassCast 50, and I poured it to about 23, 24. It got stupid hot, and I think it's just forced the bubbles out the wood. That's my explanation anyway. I was watching it. There was no heat gun on this to get rid of these. The whole thing was so hot, it was ridiculous. Fortunately, all of this didn't boil. It's got a very odd texture to it at the moment, but it's looking stunning. The depth in it is brilliant. What I've got to do about that is I'm going to take some Abranet by hand with a block and just sand it until it's flat, and then the next layer of resin will sit in any grooves and it won't show through. Fingers crossed for me, please. Got a brand new piece of Abranet rather than using anything that's got any dust on it, etc. Quite a big bubble in the middle there. I might be really lucky if I can open up all of those bubbles. I can see a couple just below the surface. I've got to go down a little bit more, making sure I keep a close eye on what wood would be showing, and I might be quite lucky. Let's pour my final pour. It's going to take a while to settle. Also, I don't want it going over onto that top left hand corner mallee, so I'm starting this side. I'll let it slowly envelop those scratches. You can see almost immediately the scratches are disappearing where the resin is going into those scratches. And when that resin clears, you shouldn't see any. There you go. Had a couple of little air bubbles, which I've filled with resin. They were stuck to the side of the wood. What I didn't do with this one, my bad, is I didn't paint the resin on the burrs. So next time I'll do it like that. Now I am going to be cutting down here and across here. As to exactly where I'm going to cut, I'll measure that up later, I think. But for now, let's start on the back. The middle piece, I did shave off the corners so you can see them buried in there, which is fine. I'm not too worried about that. I love the way the bits of burr are sitting around free floating in the resin, but that's the underneath. Perhaps could have done with taking this down a tiny bit more through the sander on these edges here, but hopefully the oscillating sander will get those. French cleats made. That is roughly where everything is going to go. So you've got one section there, one section there. That French cleat is just above halfway point, so that should hang just perfectly well. That's a high point, that's a high, that's nearish central, so again shouldn't have any issues, but that's as close as I can get it without the actual cleat actually showing through the resin. I'm going to get this finished now. Doesn't need to be perfect, it's the back of the piece. And that's the 600 grit finish. I've not even taken any of the dust off yet. Did have the vac running all the time. I'm just going to put a quick coat of wax over that. You've got a couple of tiny little air bubbles, certainly in the sides near the softwood, and a couple in the middle here. But I don't think that's going to be an issue. It's on the back of the piece. But that will do for now. And onto the front. These bits where I put the bit of resin in, I'm going to go over those with 80 grit and go over the whole thing with 80 grit. You see that line there? That's the tolerance I've got for cutting down that centre piece without actually touching the burr this side or this side. So somewhere directly in the middle of that is where I plan to cut and then tidy up. I have got just a handful of pinprick air bubbles around the edge of the Mallee burr. I'm just going to dig those out, scratch them up a little bit, circle them, and then go and put the tiniest amount of resin in it and leave it for 3 or 4 days like I did before. It's fine for you, because in a few seconds you'll see me resanding it and getting rid of these little air bubbles. But for me, I gotta wait. I don't want to wait, but I want it to be good. That's huge. I'm glad I discovered that now, because that would have been shown quite badly when I got a high finish on the resin on the surface. And while I'm there, I may as well do these little tiny pinprick ones. I need to do this one again. Resin didn't get down as far as I wanted it to. Hopefully that's all those air bubbles filled now. And I can see down in here, hang on, let me get you a better view. And I can see down through the freshly poured resin. It's gone off now, it's well hard. It's been in there for a few days. And there's gonna be a lot of air bubbles that seeped out that wood. But I think that I can make it work. It'll be okay. You can see it coming together now, which is lovely. I like the progress of a project. It gets closer and closer. I am going to be going through the air bubble area. So on the edge, there's likely to be a few air bubbles, but yeah, we'll deal with that in due course. Just drew a light pencil mark initially. And I'll come this way just a tiny bit. Like that. Across here. I've got to take it out of here, whatever I'm going to have that distance apart from there. That makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, I think I explained that clearly enough. And you know what? I may as well make that big enough for a pen blank for somebody, although it's quite clear resin, they probably wouldn't want it for a pen blank. But I'll do it anyway, because effectively it's going to have a bit of Mallee burr on it. If there's not too many bubbles in that particular end piece for a pen, might look quite nice with that on a short... yeah, okay, maybe it'll work. And now it's looking a little bit more like it's supposed to. Something along those lines. Tidy that edge up on the table saw and these edges, using this as my straight edge. Then I can take that edge off once that's nice and straight, and then do the ends. Okay. Now in terms of bubbles in the resin above the... okay, at the moment, doesn't look too sad, just around this edge. Or around here. Or here. Good. I am pleased. Oh yeah, look, and I got my offcut for a pen blank. I'm thinking somebody can use that dark blue down the bottom, that part dark blue, and then you've got a slightly darker blue, as you know from when I poured the resin, and then you've got the clearer stuff up the top here, which is probably no good to anyone. But that pen blank down there, incorporate that into a stubby pen, that could look quite smart. And not only that, it's a bit glow in the dark, isn't it? Don't forget that. But you can't see the glow in the dark just yet with the light off because it's daytime. I've got the blind down on the door on my workshop, but it's too much light. Come and fire it to be able to show you the glow in the dark. I definitely am going to need to make a feature of those bubbles. I can see them really clearly through there. The hard work is going to be using this up and down there, top, bottom, sides. That's quite a few sides. 12 sides. And eventually it will look something like that, but a lot more see-through. Finally, I've done it. I've created the key. That is 2000 grip finish. I've finished the back to 1000 and I put a little bit of wax on the back. I don't want a perfectly clear finish. I don't want it to be crystal clear, but I think a little bit clearer than this would be lovely. Really starting to see the bubbles up here. Can you see them up there? So I'm going to quick once over with 3000. I'll do the others, but I'll cut that bit out of the video. See, now that's pretty good finish. But I think the wood needs a little bit of wax. I'm going to put wax on everything. And the sides. Done the back already. Just a bit of microcrystalline. Slap it on there. Brings that wood to life, which I love. Just up to halfway. Before that wax goes off, I'm going to get the 3000 grit. I'll do the other side in just a moment, but I don't know if you can see the difference on camera there, but this is slightly clearer and a slight gloss on it, whereas this is a little bit rougher, a little bit cloudier. I really like this. Still cloudy, but you can still really see that wood under here. Brilliant. Okay, so just before I go, I think you're going to need to see this glow in the dark, the phosphors. Next is the instructions for the customer for how to hang it on the wall. I'll finish this all exactly the same, get all the sides finished with the wax as well. And next will come the instructions. Your purchase came with 2 boxes. One large one slightly smaller. Take the large box, remove the lid, remove the 4 screws that hold it down, take the lid off, remove the contents carefully, put your hand in a big gap, lift up, hold onto the cleat at the back and lift it out, being very careful of the front face and the sides and everything else. Also in the box you've got your French cleats for the wall, bracket A, bracket C, and oddly, bracket B. You also have a magical key, which I will talk you through how to use. Put the box somewhere safe and then move the big piece of your artwork onto the box. Your key. When you're measuring up on the wall where you want it, if there's a specific place you want it, measure it. This point here, where this little arrow is 131 millimeters to the very top of the piece. This point here is the central point. It's 618 millimeters wide. The total depth of the piece is 554 millimeters. So from those basic bits of information on there, you should be able to get it on the wall exactly where you want it. Once you've worked out where you want it, hold your key up to the wall, put that in this right position, make sure that's the right height away from where you want it, and put bracket A in place. Move your key away, screw in your first screw into the middle of the bracket. Then put your level on. Level up and put your remaining screws in. Once that's done, the key fits snugly, bar about 1 millimeter into position. But have somebody else hold this firmly against that bracket. And take bracket B. Place bracket B all the way into this corner and affix it in place. With bracket A and bracket B in position, we can take the larger piece of your artwork and put it on the wall. Don't put the top piece of this side on the wall yet, because we need to fit the bottom bracket for this side. Your key, flip it over. Now, the bottom bracket on this one, here says bottom bracket of main piece. Slide that in behind the piece. Have somebody else push down and push that way. Not so the whole thing moves, but just enough so this is in the right position. Then get your bracket C, place it in that position, hold it in place and fix it on the wall. Remove the key and place these on their respective cleats. Again, please do use the microfiber cloth to get rid of any specks of dust. Just a very light brush, don't be rubbing at it really hard. And finally the last one, probably better to slide it in from the side onto your French cleat. Now, there's a certain amount of room for maneuver here, either by feeling behind and getting it in exactly the right spot, or just doing it by eye. The distance here wants to mimic the distance here to have your piece in perfect positioning. So you can move it right along really close if you want to, or you can put it slightly further apart, as long as it's stable on the wall. But ideally, this distance and this distance need to match, and I'm happy with that. And just so you know, currently this is one of my absolute favorite pieces. I love the perspectives and different angles you can see, particularly when you get in the middle here. You see all those air bubbles erupting from the rocks of the cave below. Just love all the different perspectives in it. Well, I hope it brings you much pleasure and you enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe.